Hello everyone and welcome to Counselor Feature Friday. I'm your host, Brian Urban. In these features we hope to give you some simple tips, tidbits, and tricks to make your days easier and your patients happier. In this feature, we're going to talk about the My Profile feature. There are two ways to access this feature. First off, under the administration option in the menu bar, you can click on My Profile. Alternately, you can click on your name in the top right-hand corner. Both paths will take you to the same place. This is an area that is, generally speaking, set and forget. It's not something you'd visit very often, but it is important to note what options are in here so you make sure you're keeping everything up to date and being able to change as needed. All right, so top to bottom here, of course, you can have your name, not surprisingly. We do recommend that you include your credentials with your last name if they apply. Then the title and provider type. These are things, if you have any questions about that, please let us know. As we move down, of course, you can update your email address, your password. You can add a profile picture. This is primarily going to be for providers, but certainly other staff it could apply. The profile picture can be added to emails and text messages, whether they're going out for like a marketing purpose or they're going out for an appointment confirmation, right? So you can have the image, for example, of the provider right with that confirmation email or text message. As we go further here, of course, you can update your license number. You can decide whether or not you want to receive that audible ding when you receive a notification, meaning you receive a user chat. So by default, this is activated, but if you want to turn it off, you certainly can, or turn it back on. It's up to you. The fax messaging. When a fax goes out and it fails, you can decide where that failed fax or I should say if you'll receive a notification the fax failed, and if so, where. So if you leave it blank, then Counselor won't send a failed fax email. However, if you do have an address, it will send it, of course, to that email address. Now, of course, there are other ways to track failed faxes within Counselor, specifically from the Sent Reports dashboard widget, but this may be a very handy tool for you as well to actually get a real-time notification that, yes, in fact, the fax failed. Okay? But completely optional, of course. Next would be text messaging. If you have the text messaging feature activated in Counselor, you have the ability to have the user chat messages be redirected to your cell phone. Okay, so let's say you're in between locations and someone sends you a chat message. It can then be sent off to your cell phone. You can reply to that chat message, and the person who originally contacted you will receive that as a pop-up message in their screen, right? And you can also build in a delay. So you basically say, you want to have a 30-second delay or 1 minute or 2 minutes. Basically what that means is that gives you an opportunity to actually view and dismiss the chat message within the Counselor interface. And if you do that, then a text message isn't sent. But if you set this, let's say, to 1 minute, that gives you 1 minute to review the chat before any text may be sent. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and close that. Moving down here, we have the insurance settings. This gives you the opportunity to put in your specific, insurance-related information. So most importantly, your name and NPI, the billing provider. It's important to note this other ID is typically left blank. There are specific scenarios where it may be, but generally speaking, you would leave the other ID blank. But generally, this is something that Counselor support team also helps you set up when you first start with Counselor. So very likely, if you've been using Counselor for any amount of time, this is already all set. Okay, but if things change down the road, you can always edit it there. There's also the option to edit your Apex settings. This is where you put in your specific credentials if you work with Apex EDI. It's important to note that if you work with ClaimMD, those settings are entered under administration and then clinic list. So this is something which is a slight difference where ClaimMD is managed at the clinic level, whereas the Apex EDI settings are managed at the individual provider level. Okay. Next here we have MultiFactor Authentication. This is the ability to use an additional device, typically a smartphone, to verify that it's you that's signing in. right? It's just an extra security feature. You may be familiar with banking apps and other types of accounts that you log into. This is by default not activated, but if you do want to activate it, you activate it under administration, under user list. There's an option within the security settings to activate multi-factor authentication, and that can be done on a specific staff member by staff member basis. If you do have it activated, then whoever it's activated for can pop into their My Profile screen and they can see instructions as to how to get started with the multi-factor authentication. It utilizes Google Authenticator. We don't have to go into much more detail than that, but just the idea being that if it is activated for you, this will give you the information on how to get started. Okay. Moving forward, there's the scanning option. This sets the version of software that you're using for the direct scan feature. So basically, if you ever have an issue where things aren't scanning, of course, please reach out to our support team. We're happy to help. Very commonly, they'll encourage you to upgrade to the newest version of the software. Of course, there's no charge for doing that, just simply a setting that we can assist you with kind of talking you through, I should say. Then there's Snapshot. That's the ability to use your smartphone or your tablet to take pictures of whatever images you want to capture, whether it be the insurance card, the patient's photo ID, maybe it's their smiling face, maybe it's a picture of a hearing instrument that they brought in that's been stepped on. The Snapshot's a very easy system to use and allows you to capture pictures very quickly. And this setting allows you to determine which version you're going to use. Version 1 is the application that counselor created, so very commonly probably most are using this. You can download it from the Google Play or iTunes App Store. There's also an alternate version with just a standard QR reader. That may work, does work as well. Some of this just depends on your specific mobile device. So if you are not using Snapshot yet and you want to, typically you just start off by using the counselor version. If you run into issues, contact our support team. They may encourage you to use version 2. Just some options there. Okay. Moving on further here, display options. This lets you set your display, right? So you can decide the color combinations. Currently I had it set to black and blue, but you can play around with these settings and find what is just the most visually appealing for you, right? And this, of course, all these settings will only affect your profile. They're not affect anybody else's. You also have the ability to set how you want to see the patient name in the header. So when you bring open a patient profile, you're working on an invoice, the patient's name and information displays in the header, and you can decide if you want to change this, where maybe you want the counselor ID to show, or you want the social security number. Sometimes it depends on the facility you're in. If there's certain medical record numbers, for example, that you want displayed instead. So you have some options there. The last option here is that if you use a VoIP system, you do have the ability to turn this on, and then if counselor sees, or really if your browser sees that there's a phone number, it'll make that phone number clickable, so which would activate the VoIP system that you're currently using. So just a slightly quicker way of calling someone right through counselor, essentially. Really, though, using your VoIP system is the system that's actually facilitating this, but the counselor can start the process for you. All right, so click close there. The last area here is the signature, which you likely already have in place. You can see your current signature. You can draw your signature. This does work reasonably well, but typically the most common way to do it is to use the email, or use the form to sign. So you print out the form, sign it, scan it back in, and then email or fax it to us, and then we take that image, kind of clean it up, and then load it into your account on your behalf. There's no charge for that, of course. We're very happy to do it. So you do have multiple methods, drawing online or the form. You also have the ability to upload an image if you already have captured your signature. With any of these changes, you want to make sure once you finish your changes, you click save. And of course, that will lock in those changes. You see the little mesh at the top, changes saved, and then you can go back, of course, to the rest of your day. All right, so as always, if you have any questions about any part of the My Profile feature, please give us a call, email us, live chat us. We are always happy to help. Thank you very much for joining us for Counselor Feature Friday. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.